Hi everybody, and welcome to this week's, chat. We have no fireside, we have no fire, we have nothing associated with a fireside chat. We're coming to you instead today from the retreat room, which is located just off Ty Hall. And that's because this week we have a special guest, one of our pastoral associates, Teresa Albright, who is going to visit with us about our Rite of Christian Initiation of Adults considerations that are like so much else, kind of peculiarly articulated this year. Before we're finished today, I also want to get into some of our thoughts about reconvening as a parish, but we'll save that for the end. So let me introduce to you Teresa, who has been on our staff now, I guess this is your second year?
Third year.
Your third year.
Yeah.
All right, great. And her responsibilities are Rite of Christian Initiation of Adults.
Yes, Father.
And baptism sacrament preparation.
Mm-hmm.
And the School of Religion program.
School of Religion.
Faith and formation. The Faith Formation Committee.
Mm-hmm.
The one we have at Visitation Parish is especially renowned for its effectiveness, I do believe. But today I think we're going to talk about the Rite of Christian Initiation of Adults. Ordinarily, our catechumens and candidates, people who've done that program through the year, are received into the church at the Easter Vigil. Well, of course, this year there was no Easter Vigil, and there was no very practical way to do it. So, Teresa, why don't you talk with us a little bit about what we're currently planning on doing?
Sure. So we did get a directive from Bishop Johnston a few weeks ago announcing that for the elect, so those are our people who are going through the process who are not baptized, we call them the elect, that they would be initiated into the church on May 30th, which is this year's Vigil Mass for Pentecost. So we only have one elect. Candidates could be really initiated at any given Mass throughout the year. And I did post, since they did miss the Easter Vigil, that they could choose to do it at another time other than May 30th, but that would be the date that Joel, our one elect, that would have to be initiated. And the whole group wanted to celebrate together, of course. So we will all be coming in together on May 30th.
You did a great job defining what an elect is. Can you also define what candidates are?
Sure. So a candidate is a candidate for full communion into the Catholic Church because we already share our baptism together. So we already share in one baptism with our candidates. They might have been baptized in the Methodist Church or the Presbyterian Church or wherever they're coming from a valid baptism.
That's why we say in the Creed we believe in one baptism for the forgiveness of sins.
That's right.
Right. Okay, so on the 30th of May at the 4 o'clock Vigil Mass is what we're currently thinking. Now I'll just tell you, we hope by then we're up and going to a degree. That's going to be a long liturgy, going to be kind of different.
Yep.
Would you talk a little bit about what might happen there?
Sure. So we don't know all of the logistics, but for those of you who make it your habit every year to come to the Easter Vigil, because Visitation does such a beautiful job at the liturgy, and Easter Vigil is already a beautiful liturgy anyway, if you make it your habit to come to that Easter Vigil, to come and see the RCIA group be initiated, it will look different because it's not an Easter Vigil. So for example, you're used to seeing the fire outside and the Easter candle being brought in and that whole what is it called, the rite of light or
Service of light.
Service of light.
I know there's a more official name, but that's good enough.
So you won't see that on May 30th because it's not Easter. However, it is Pentecost, and we have our own celebrations of Pentecost, and that's a beautiful holy day in the church year, and very appropriate for what we're doing here and initiating these people into the church.
Our catechumen and candidates have obviously had to wait to come into the church this year. Can you talk some about perhaps perhaps what the fruits of that waiting have been?
Oh, sure. Well, first, this group, a lot of them, first of all, every year is different of our group, right? This particular year of RCIA candidates and our one elect, in many ways are already part of our visitation community because we have so many school parents in this year's group. So, and then because most of them are also candidates, therefore also baptized and have been raised in a Christian tradition, I offered them, depending on their particular individual situation, of not having to go through the whole process necessarily, the whole 7-month process, for those who are already baptized at least. And all of the people in this group wanted to have that experience of waiting and preparing and going through all the rituals that go along with RCIA. They were really excited about keeping with the tradition and going through those rituals and waiting. And they've really, I think that because of the patience that they've already had to have and going through these 7 months without the Eucharist and sacraments, they've really handled this whole unknown couple weeks very well, I think. And they're just happy to be able to come into the church and celebrate the sacraments at this point. So they're just happy whenever they can do it. They're excited.
There are many aspects of the RCIA program that are edifying to me. One of the most edifying aspects of it is seeing how the group every year coalesces. Yeah. And I think this year has been conspicuous in that way. Would you like to introduce to us the folks?
I do want to introduce you to them. So I'm going to do my best and share this poster that we usually have in the narthex after the rite of election. What the bishop is usually going to put this out into the narthex. And I just wanted to give you a little introduction to our beautiful people coming into the church, who I love so very much. So we have our one elect here, Joel. And Joel, I would say he is a very open-minded, non-judgmental gentleman. Then we have Stephanie. She's a school mom. Her youngest is at St. Teresa's right now. And she's very observant. I would call Stephanie a wise woman. Brenda Craig, she is a school grandparent. She is, of course, looking after her grandson now who lost his mom last year. So Brenda, we actually have 2 people in our group this year who suffered great losses in the last year. Brenda's one of them, losing her daughter last year. But Brenda, she comes from the Methodist tradition, and she is very prayerful. She is filled with the Holy Spirit. Kathy Graham coming in, she, I think the gift that she's going to bring to our community is her sense of wonder and awe at the sacraments. You can watch her face at Mass, and she just lights up when you're consecrating the Blessed Sacrament, Father. Maddie, she is one of our people in the group. She is marrying a Catholic, and she is really excited about her wedding that has now had to be moved. But she's thoughtful. She's a very thoughtful young woman. Carrie is also another school parent, and Carrie is grace-filled and graceful. She's a classy lady. We got John Legg over here. He, of course, suffered a great tragedy with the loss of his son last year. So I would say John is very strong and brave. Then we have Erin Kobler over here. She's also a school parent. And Erin's joyful. She's seen some difficult things in her life, but she is a joyful person. Dylan, another school dad. Dylan is a man who wants to do right by the people he loves, I would say. And we have Scott. Scott and Brenda are partners, raising Benson right now. And Scott is devoted and committed. And then we have Brett. Brett's an intellectual. Do you know Brett?
I do, yes.
Yeah. He's an intellectual, but I think he's a bit of a mystic too. Yeah, he's a searcher. So these are the people who are coming into our group, and you know, those very brief descriptions of them are just that. Of course, it doesn't encapsulate everything that they're going to bring to our community. And in many ways, because I'm usually the one up there teaching the classes, the team members are the ones who are at the tables with our group. And the team members are probably the ones who can speak even more about the gifts that this group is going to bring to our community. And of course, our RCIA team is pretty spectacular.
Please tell us who they are.
Well, we have Angela Bergner and Jenny Green, Kirk Baines, Sherry Kearns, and Millie Kerna. I mean, you can't really get much better than that.
No, you can't. You know, you say those names, and it really kind of painfully reminds me of how much I miss all you people. I so look forward to the time when we can reconvene. And we'll begin to talk about that in just a minute. But before we leave you, Teresa, would you talk a little bit about why you enjoy RCIA work so much?
Oh, thank you. You know, I hadn't done RCIA before coming here. I taught some classes, but I hadn't been an RCIA director before. And I was a little worried that it would be out of my comfort zone because of the interfaith work that I typically do with people from other traditions. And so I wasn't used to kind of talking about the idea of conversion to Catholicism. And I really didn't know how I was going to respond. But what I really love about RCIA is how it's a group of people who come from such vastly different walks of life and different traditions, really. And they're bringing new life into our church, which is why I'm a little excited about celebrating at Pentecost and bringing this new life into the people of God at Pentecost this year. So I love the diversity that it brings into our community, but then of course the symbol of unity in that diversity. Yeah, thanks for asking, Father.
It's an important program, and you do a good job with it. So thank you for what you do.
I love it.
Well, I know we're going to get a little long in the tooth here, so I don't want to get too far into the weeds, and I can't really, but I want to mention a few words about our eventual reconvening. For all the world, it looks like we're going to be able to open up, not this coming weekend, but the following weekend, which I guess is what, the 16th and 17th, Megan?
Yes,
of May. And you know, folks, I am sorry to say this, but we're just going to have to get our heads around it. When we come back, it's not going to be like old times. Maybe eventually it'll get there, but at least originally it's going to be pretty different. Civic authority and also church authority is going to obligate us to do a bunch of things in the way of social distancing, in the way of cleaning between masses, in the way of just protecting each other. That's going to affect our liturgies in really kind of a granular way. And the diocese and the staff and I are beginning the hot and heavy process of discovering what we're going to do here at Visitation. You know, it's interesting. Different parishes are doing things in wildly different ways. There's some parishes in the diocese that are doubling their number of weekend masses. There are some, at least one parish in the diocese, that are just not even having weekend masses, but they are having weekday masses. There's some parishes that are only maybe having one weekend mass. I mean, the approaches are all over the place. This is our thinking right now. We cannot resume our regular weekend schedule. It's just impossible because of the amount of sanitizing that has to be done between the masses. So don't hold me to this, but I think that when we reconvene, it's going to be with a schedule of 4 o'clock Saturday, 8 o'clock a.m. on Sunday morning, and 11 o'clock a.m. on Sunday morning, Furthermore, we're going to have a kind of computerized sign up for those masses. The city will obligate us to have a limit on the number of folks we can let into church. I can't say today what that number will be because that issue is so much in flux. And I don't know, there are a lot of other things I could say, but I think it's kind of counterproductive for me to get too far into the weeds. I'm going to ask these two staff members here with me if you think there's anything about the issue that should be said today that I have not said yet.
Maybe just that the diocese has indicated that all people who attend Mass are obligated to wear a mask in the door, when they're in the communion line, and as they leave. It can be removed when they're sitting in pew, but the remainder of the time they do have to have a mask on, and so we will not be able to let them in the door without a mask.
That was Megan Berdalski, who has the voice with the power of an opera singer. So I suspect that you probably heard her, but I'll briefly repeat it. That is something, I'll tell you, this mask stuff is hard for me. But they're asking everybody to wear a mask in the door of church and out the door of church and in the communion line. We don't have to wear one while we're sitting in the pew. I gotta wear one at least while I'm distributing communion, as I understand it. Is that right? Yeah. That's just one of the things that I'm asking you to try to get your head around. I know it can be hard. I'm right there with you. But we don't have any choice about this stuff. And so we have to do it. All right. Maybe that's enough for now, you think? Maybe that's enough for now? The diocese and the staff will continue to meet about this issue, and of course we'll have more to say about it next week. Now, it's my understanding that the staff is going to get together and make their own video presentation about the COVID-19 requirements and how they apply to our liturgy. Is that right, ladies?
That's right.
Yes, they can expect that next week.
Okay, next week we can look for that. I don't know what my part in that will be, but I guess it is fair to say there'll be another fireside next week. And you know, one of the things they won't let us do is hand out bulletins. Can you beat that? So if we can't have bulletins, I'm not going to write a bulletin column. So we may be having these fireside chats also for the foreseeable future in lieu of a bulletin column.
There are a lot of people that will be happy to hear that.
Yes, I know, and I will contemplate that. All right. So anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in to today's installment, and we look forward to seeing you. Until then, goodbye, and